Senior Science Officer Vextra leaned forward, mandibles clicking in anticipation as the holographic display filled the conference room. The soft blue glow traced the ridges of her exoskeleton, casting warped shadows along the chamber's curved walls. "So this," she said, gesturing toward the rotating image of a blue-green sphere, "is where we're meant to find our next conquest?" The gathered officers of the Crovian Imperium shifted in their seats. Grand Commander Perlox cleared his throat, a deep, rattling note that reverberated through the room. "Yes, Officer Vextra, the natives call it Earth. Our preliminary scans show the dominant species are bipedal mammals, minimal natural armaments, no claws, no armor, no venom, physically underwhelming." Vextra gave a sharp, derisive click. "And you need my expertise because—" "Protocol?" "Because," Perlox answered flatly, "the High Council mandates a xenobiologist's evaluation before any military action. You know this." "Of course I do," Vextra replied, rolling all four eyes in unison. Vextra rolled all four eyes in perfect unison. "I simply find it tedious when the conclusion is so painfully clear. But fine. Let's proceed with the evaluation." Lieutenant Zorbach, a junior officer whose violet carapace gleamed under the chamber lights, tapped rapidly on his datapad. "I've assembled the preliminary profile, Science Officer. The species calls itself humans. Average height, roughly 1/8 of a Crovian. Muscle density, only 1/5 that of our warriors. No inherent weaponry beyond blunt teeth and brittle nails. They require frequent hydration and nourishment, and sleep nearly 1/3 of their planetary rotation. Their reproductive cycle is inefficient to the point of absurdity. In other words, pitiful," Commander Perlox said, his mandibles clicking in smug agreement. Exactly as predicted. Vextra tapped the tip of her forelimb against the table, an irritating habit she'd never bothered to break. "Have we acquired any specimens for proper analysis?" "3, Zorbach answered. "Collected from separate regions of the planet, currently in the containment wing. And has anyone examined their psychological patterns, cultural adaptations, technological capacity?" An awkward pause settled over the chamber. "No," Zorbach admitted. Vextra shook her head slowly. "Of course not. Why waste time on trivial matters? Let's just measure arm strength and declare victory." "With respect, Science Officer," Perlox said through tight mandibles, "the Crovian Imperium has taken 78 worlds using our standard assessment protocol. I see no reason this case will differ." 77, Vextra corrected. "Unless you're counting the Exilari incident as a victory, which would be generous." Perlox's antennae flattened. "The Exilari were an anomaly." "They were underestimated," Vextra countered, rising from her seat. "A mistake I refuse to repeat. I'll conduct my own evaluation before approving any invasion plans." The containment wing thrummed with the sound of energy barriers and atmospheric filters. Vextra strode past rows of empty cells, the sterile air tinged with metallic bite, until she reached the occupied section. 2 of the human specimens were confined separately, one curled in a corner, weeping softly, the other sitting motionless, eyes fixed on the floor. Marcus Levine's capture. Marcus Levine sat in his cell, staring blankly at the wall. The third enclosure, however, drew Vextra's immediate interest. This human stood upright in the center, eyes sweeping the space with methodical precision. When she approached, he turned to face her, no flinching, no visible fear. Just measured observation. "Fascinating," she murmured, activating the wrist-mounted translator. "Subject 3, identify yourself." The human tilted his head slightly. "Marcus Levine, structural engineer, Toronto." "And you are?" Vextra's mandibles clicked in mild surprise. Most specimens were far too frightened for such direct engagement. "I am Senior Science Officer Vextra of the Crovian Imperium. You seem unusually composed for—" Your situation? Marcus gave a casual shrug, a gesture Vextra mentally logged for later. Panic won't help me figure out what's happening, or how to leave. Besides, it's not like humans haven't imagined this. We have protocols. Protocols? A faint unease rippled through her. You mean your species has prepared for extraterrestrial contact? Not officially, Marcus admitted, but we've been thinking about it for centuries. He stepped closer to the shimmering energy barrier, stopping just shy of it. In fiction, in theory, in science, we've mapped out a lot of scenarios for conversations like this. Vextra activated her datapad. Explain these scenarios. Some, Marcus said, end well. Cultural exchange, tech sharing, peaceful coexistence. His expression shifted, hardening. Others don't. Conquest, slavery, extermination. And which, Vextra asked, do you think this will be? Well, Marcus glanced deliberately at the cell around him. You didn't exactly send a welcome basket. Vextra startled herself with a sharp laugh. No, I suppose we didn't. She adjusted the energy field, forming a transparent seat for herself just outside the barrier. Tell me, Marcus Levine, what would your species do if it encountered a civilization far weaker than its own? Marcus paused, thinking. Some would try to help. Some would try to exploit. Some wouldn't care at all. We're not united on much. That sounds inefficient. It is, Marcus agreed. But it's also our strength. He settled cross-legged on the floor. When billions of minds think differently, you get billions of possible answers to any problem. We call it diversity of thought. Vextra recorded the phrase. Physically, your kind is unimpressive compared to many species we've studied. Thanks for the confidence boost. It wasn't intended as an insult, merely an observation. I know, Marcus said, a faint smirk forming. That was sarcasm. Sarcasm? Saying one thing but meaning another? Usually for humor, Marcus finished. Vextra made a sharp note. So you intentionally communicate inaccurately? How does your society remain functional? It's complicated, Marcus admitted. But we manage. Sometimes barely. He leaned forward. So, what happens now, Science Officer Vextra? Am I a permanent guest in this cozy little box? Or do you have other plans? Commander Perlox did not approve of Vextra's proposal. You want to what? He thundered, slamming a clawed appendage onto his desk. Release the human, Marcus. Levine, into a controlled habitat for extended observation, Vextra repeated evenly. The containment cells are too restrictive for meaningful study. Absolutely not. The risk is minimal, Vextra countered. He's 1/8 your size, 1/5 your strength. What are you afraid he'll do? Perlox's compound. Eyes narrowed. It's not standard protocol. Neither is launching a planetary invasion without adequate intelligence. Yet here we are. She slid her datapad across his desk. Review my preliminary findings. These humans have built artificial intelligence, harnessed nuclear power, and developed thousands of distinct cultures simultaneously. They fight among themselves constantly, yet still advance at a staggering pace. Don't you think that's unusual? Perlox skimmed the data, his irritation obvious. Irrelevant. Every species has quirks. None have stood against our military might. The Exilari did. Stop mentioning the Exilari, Perlox roared. Fine, Vextra said coolly, but I'm still requesting a habitat for proper observation, unless you'd prefer explaining to the High Council why you denied standard scientific protocol. Perlox seethed in silence before growling his reply. 2 days. You have 2 days with your human pet. Then I expect your full report, endorsing immediate invasion. We'll see what the data indicates, Vextra said, already turning toward the exit. The data always says what I tell it to say, Science Officer, Perlox called after her. Don't forget that. The habitat was, Vextra admitted, impressive. The engineering division had constructed a convincing facsimile of a human residence, modeled from resources scraped off their primitive planetary data net. It contained a raised sleeping platform, sanitation facilities, a nutrition preparation station, and even interactive entertainment devices preloaded with human cultural media. Marcus stepped inside, taking in the details with raised brows. "You've done your homework." "We're thorough when it benefits us," Vextra replied. "Is it adequate?" Marcus glanced around once more. "Feels like a strange hotel room." "But yes." Marcus tested the bed, bouncing slightly. "So what's the plan here? You watch me eat and sleep for a few days, then what?" Vextra settled into an observation chair designed for her physiology. "I evaluate whether your species presents any unexpected challenges to conquest." Marcus froze. "You are planning to invade Earth. The Crovian Imperium is always expanding. Your planet has resources we desire and its people." Vextra hesitated. "That depends on their usefulness." Marcus sat heavily on the bed. "Well, that's refreshingly honest, at least I have found. Honesty expedites these assessments. And what happens if you determine we are not worth the trouble? That outcome is unlikely." Vextra said, "But hypothetically, the Imperium would seek a less resource-intensive approach, like what limited harvesting operations, targeted resource extraction." Marcus rubbed his face with his hands, and if we resist, the Vextra's mandibles clicked softly. "Your species lacks the physical capacity to resist effectively." Marcus looked up, and something in his expression made Vextra's exoskeleton tingle with an unfamiliar sensation. "That's where you are wrong," he said quietly. "And that's what I need to help you understand." Over the next cycle, Vextra observed Marcus with growing fascination. He maintained precise routines, exercised despite limited space, and requested specific foods that would optimize barrier separating the habitat from the observation area. "He's going to invade regardless of your recommendations, isn't he?" Vextra's mandibles clicked in frustration. "Perlox has built his career on military conquest. The High Council rewards results, not caution. Even when caution might prevent another exolary situation. Especially then, admitting uncertainty is seen as weakness in Crovian command structures." Vextra gathered her data pads. "I must prepare my presentation. What will you tell them?" Vextra paused. "The truth that humans demonstrate concerning cognitive and adaptive capabilities that warrant further study before military engagement, and if they ignore you, then I will have fulfilled my scientific duty, regardless of the outcome." Marcus pressed his hand against the barrier. "There's something you should know before you go. Something about humans that your scans and tests won't show you." "What's that?" "We are really good at improvising when cornered, and we don't take extinction threats." Lying down, his expression was deadly serious. "If your people come to Earth looking for an easy fight, they won't find one. Your confidence is admirable but misplaced." Vextra said, though with less certainty than she would have expressed 2 days earlier, the technological gap between our civilizations is substantial. Technology isn't everything." Marcus replied, "The exolari proved that, didn't they?" As Vextra turned to leave, Marcus called after her, "One more thing. Science officer, whatever happens next, remember this conversation. It might save your life someday." Vextra paused, mandibles clicking. "In contemplation, is that a threat?" Marcus Levine. "No," he said quietly. "It's a warning from someone who doesn't want to see unnecessary bloodshed on either side." The command deck of the Crovian vessel hummed with activity as Vextra entered. Officers moved with purpose, holographic displays flickered with planetary data, and the unmistakable sound of weapons systems being calibrated echoed through the chamber. This wasn't preparation. This was mobilization. Commander Perlox stood at the central platform, his massive frame looming over a three-dimensional projection of Earth. He was drawing invasion vectors with practiced swipes of his claws. Commander Vextra said, "Approaching." with her data pad clutched tightly. "I see you have already begun strategic planning." Herlox didn't look up. "The High Council wants results, not excuses. Your final report." "I don't have a final report because my observation period isn't complete," Vextra replied, mandibles clicking in irritation. "But I do have preliminary findings that strongly suggest that the humans are physically inferior in every measurable way." Herlox interrupted. "Yes, we established that before you started your little pet project." With the talking monkey Vextra's 4 eyes narrowed simultaneously, "His name is Marcus Levine, and he's demonstrated cognitive abilities that warrant serious consideration." "Noted," Herlox said dismissively. "Anything else?" "Yes." Vextra stepped directly into his line of sight, forcing him to acknowledge her. "I believe we may be underestimating the humans' capacity for resistance, particularly their psychological adaptations." Herlox let out a hissing laugh. "Psychological adaptations? Will they think us to death, Science Officer?" "They might," Vextra said, her voice dropping. "Just like the Exolari." The command deck fell silent. Even the junior officers froze at the mention of that name. Herlox's voice was dangerously quiet. "The Exolari incident was classified by direct order of the High Council, and yet we refuse to learn from it. Herlox orders the invasion." Vextra countered. "The humans show similar cognitive patterns, adaptive thinking, rapid problem-solving, and most concerning, an ability to identify and exploit weaknesses. They have no logical way of detecting." "Explain," Herlox demanded the human. "Marcus deduced our command structure, your leadership style, and even the existence of the Exolari conflict from minimal information. He's been analyzing me while I have been analyzing him." Lieutenant Zorbak stepped forward, hesitantly. "Commander, if I may, our intelligence division has noted unusual patterns in Earth communications since our arrival in their system. They appear to be sharing information about our presence at an alarming rate," and Herlox snapped, "and they are not panicking." Zorbak continued, "Based on previous contact scenarios, we expected widespread chaos instead. They are organizing methodically." Vextra felt a surge of vindication. "Exactly my point. Their response is atypical." Herlox's antenna flattened against his head. "So they are talking to each other. How terrifying it should be." Vextra insisted, "Because what they lack in physical strength, they compensate for with collective intelligence and something Marcus called improvisation, the ability to create novel solutions under pressure. All species adapt under pressure." Herlox said, "We, proving to genetic programming and established protocols, humans create entirely new approaches, often defying logical patterns. They call it thinking outside the box. I don't care what they call it." Herlox growled, "The invasion timetable is set. You have 2 options. Science Officer, provide useful tactical information about these humans, or return to your laboratory and stay out of military affairs." Vextra stood her ground. "I recommend at minimum that we conduct further psychological assessment before committing to full-scale invasion. The risk of underestimating this species is acceptable." Herlox declared, "The High Council has approved the operation, and your concerns have been noted in the official record. You are dismissed." Vextra remained motionless, and the human specimens will be processed according to standard protocols once their usefulness has ended. "You mean executed?" Herlox turned back to his invasion planning. "I mean processed now. Leave, Science Officer. The adults have work to do." Vexram moved through the corridors of the vessel with growing unease. The Crovian Imperium had conquered countless worlds, yes, but never had she felt such certainty that they were making a grave mistake. Her scientific instincts, honed through 3 centuries of xenobiological research, were screaming warnings that Herlox and the military command were too arrogant to hear when she reached the observation habitat. Marcus was waiting at the barrier. "They are going ahead with it, aren't they?" he asked, reading her body language. Vextron nodded. "Commander Herlox has set the invasion in motion. The High Council has approved." Marcus closed his eyes briefly. "How long?" "A deployment begins in 6 hours. First contact with your population centers approximately 2 hours after that, and me, Vextra, Hesitated. You and the other specimens will be processed once the invasion is underway. Killed, you mean? Yeses. Marcus nodded slowly. Well, at least you are honest about it. He began pacing the habitat. You know, this is a mistake, I do, Vextra admitted, but my scientific assessment has been overruled, and you are just going to accept that watch billions die because some muscle-bound commander has conquest quotas to fill X-Tray's mandibles, click it in frustration. The Crovian command structure is absolute. I have the desperate escape authority to countermand military orders, but you have authority over me, right? As your research subject, technically, yes, until the processing order is executed. Marcus stopped pacing and faced her directly. Then use that authority. Let me contact Earth. Vextra's antenna shot up in alarm. That would be treason. That would be sanity, Marcus countered. Look, I can't stop your invasion, but I can help minimize casualties on both sides. How one so? By warning my people what they're really facing. Right now, governments around the world are detecting your ships, but don't know your capabilities or intentions. If they go in blind, they will make desperate moves, nukes, biological weapons, anything they think might work. You're primitive. Weapons can't harm our fleet, Vextra said, but with less certainty than she would have liked. Maybe not, Marcus conceded, but desperate humans are inventive humans, and inventive humans are dangerous, very dangerous. He pressed his hand against the barrier. You mentioned the Exilari. How many Crovian lives were lost in that incident? Vextra looked away. 842, and the Exilari population approximately 9 million. Marcus, let that sink in. You lost almost 18,000 elite troops against 9 million people who were supposedly no match for you. Earth has 8 billion humans, do the math, Vextra, but the numbers were undeniable. If the humans were anything like the Exilari, what exactly would you tell your people? Vextra asked cautiously. Of the truth. Your strengths, your weaknesses, how to surrender without being killed, how to resist if they choose to. Marcus's eyes locked with hers, and most importantly, how to negotiate as Commander Perlox won't negotiate, then he will die. Marcus said simply. Along with countless others on both sides, is that what you want? Morgara situations, Vextra made her decision. What do you need? The communications array wasn't designed for human interfaces, but Vextra had modified a console to accommodate Marcus's smaller hands. They worked quickly, knowing that security protocols would eventually detect the unauthorized transmission. This frequency should reach multiple Earth defense networks simultaneously. Vextra explained, adjusting settings, but we will only have a few minutes before it's traced. Marcus nodded, fingers poised over the makeshift keyboard. That's all I need. Security will come. For us both. Vexel warned. What I'm doing. There's no coming back from it. I know. Marcus looked up at her. Why are you helping me? Vexray's mandibles clicked softly because science demands truth, even when it's inconvenient, and the truth is your species deserves better than extermination. Because of Perlock's ambition, the console beeped. Connection established. You are live, Vextra said. Make it count. Marcus began typing rapidly, sending tactical data fleet positions, Croya physiological weaknesses, and communication protocols warning. Earth. When he finished, he opened a direct audio channel. This is Marcus Lavenastruck.